The 861st edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog. Get up to $1,000 deposit match when you sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code MMASGPN. Hi-de-ho, degenerinos, and welcome to the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, episode 861. This episode is dedicated to Jeff Fox, who is now one episode away from returning. He'll be back at the beginning of next week for our first ones. As you can see, for the third consecutive episode here, I'm flying solo. I've been taking care of all of the regional action you're going to see overseas because, hey, we got a holiday this weekend. So obviously, they're not running a ton of MMA shows here in the States, but that doesn't mean we're not getting tons of regional action. We got two shows about PFL MENA that you can check out from earlier in the week. We got one episode from PFL Europe, and now we're going to be breaking down Aries 33, which is a show out of France, which we're going to be breaking down here. Aries notoriously has been one of my worst organizations, but just to show we're not scared of anything here, that we always go all out here on the MMA Gambling Podcast, I'm taking it head on here. And of course, I didn't introduce myself. If you're wondering who the hell is this guy talking about Jeff, who I also don't know, maybe you're new to the show. If you are, I'm Dana Gubby Freeland. I am the host of this here podcast, the only guy who's been on all 861 episodes of it. And today, as I said, we're going to be breaking down Aries 33. I'm going to give you 5 fights. Granted, this card's kind of short, so we're probably going to skip the lightning round on this one. But I'm going to give you 5 fights that we're breaking down, including some with guys who are brand new to the sport. We're going to see some 1-0 guys in there, some 2-1 guys in there. But that doesn't mean there's not money to be made. You can usually find these odds on some of the major books. So make sure to keep your eyes up. Some of the offshores usually have them as well. So make sure you keep your eyes out for those. But before we get to breaking down Aries 33, let me first tell you a little bit about NASCAR's in-season tournament. It is active, and we're running a free contest. Head on over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NASCAR contest for your chance to win $200 gift card. Make sure to subscribe to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast because, look, these guys know all the ins and outs about NASCAR. You might hear a little bit about some big old fat guys from France today on this podcast, but if you need to know something about people who drive cars and win money, you need the NASCAR Gambling Podcast guys. And on top of all of that, those guys are super entertaining. So make sure you check out their show, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, wherever it is you get your podcasts. Now, as I said, we're going to be breaking down 5 fights today, and without further ado, let's get right to it. So the first fight we're going to talk about today is at lightweight. We're going to talk about Walid Masmoudi, and he is going to be fighting Jonatan Garcia. Now, this is one of the ones I told you, not a lot of data out there out of these guys. So we'll start with Garcia. His nickname is La Bestia, which means the beast. He's 2-1 in his pro career. He does have 1 submission. He himself has never been finished. This is his Aries FC debut. He's 2-0 in his last 2, which means he lost his first fight and is rebounded with back-to-back wins. He's going to be fighting Walid Masmoudi, 1-0. That 1 win is a knockout. And, of course, this is his Aries FC debut. Hasn't fought anywhere before. Man, it was hard to find film on Masmoudi. I'm going to be real honest. He's only got 1 fight, although he's got some amateur fights in there as well. I had to do some sleuthing, had to ask some people. But when all was said and done, I think Masmoudi is going to be a big favorite in this fight. What I did eventually get my hands on and watching him, really, really, really tough top control. Like, this guy is like an absolute juice box here. He's like a big, tough, heavy 55er. And when he's on top, he is devastatingly punishing with the ground and pound. Like, this is a guy who just takes it to his opponents and seems to have the gas tank to hold up. Now, granted, he did win his only fight, and we saw it end pretty quickly. But from what I can see, this guy looks like he's got the gas to go. I will say, haven't gotten a lot of great film on his takedowns. It's a couple of highlight reels that I could see, like, oh, you could kind of see how he was finishing that one, but you couldn't really see the entry on it. A different one where you could see the entry, but not really the finish. So I haven't really seen the complete package. But from what I've seen from the top control, his punches and his punches when he's standing, guy throws pretty hard. I like what I see. Now, Garcia side, this is where I've seen some holes, and as a result, why I like the Masmoudi side. He winds up a lot when he's trying to throw. People can see what he's throwing coming. He's got really good jiu-jitsu if it does get to the ground, but it's mostly like very high risk jiu-jitsu. So like he'll see the back, he'll jump to take the back without any hooks, he'll slide off the top, or I'm gonna pull a heel hook or jump a guillotine. And like we know those positions to be low percentage, particularly when you're a 2-1 pro, right? Like that. Now he's gonna take a step up, fight a guy who's a little bit harder. That's when you get hurt. And again, as I just said with Masmoudi is a guy who, when he's on top of you, has really good pressure and really good ground and pound. So if he's going to be fighting a guy who's not smart about his positioning and falls off the top, I think that's going to be a big problem. I also think we see Garcia try to wrestle in his own right a few times. And it's like real desperation. He shoots from way too far away. If he does that here against Masmoudi, I think the big issue with that for me is that like Masmoudi will probably just counter the position, and Garcia's willingness to grapple will have him on the bottom again. So I see Masmoudi being a guy who's going to wind up on top a lot in this. Garcia, a guy who's going to wind up on the bottom. I think the ground and pound gets it done for Masmoudi. Now, as far as a prediction on the odds, it's kind of hard to tell. There's not a lot of film on Masmoudi. Aries is one of the harder ones to predict. I do think Masmoudi will come in as a favorite, but it will probably be a short line, maybe somewhere in like the -200 range. All right, so that takes us through our first fight. Let's get some people who have at least a few more fights here on those records, which of course I'm talking about Ghassen, Jbalia, and he's fighting Sakhi, Qambari. So first we'll talk about Qambari. He is the machete. He's 6-1 in his pro career. He's got 4 submissions. He has been knocked out in his only loss. This is Zeri's FC debut. 6-0 in his last 6 fights. His last loss came all the way back in August of 22. He was a regional champ. He's got 2 inches of height and 4 years younger than Jbalia. Jbalia, 4-0 in his pro career. 1 knockout, 1 submission. He's 2-0 in Aries. He used to fight all the way up at 155 pounds. He is, as I said before, going to be 2 inches shorter. This one was a tough one for me. Again, we've got a guy who's sort of proven himself against high-level competition here in Aries. We got a guy whose record is maybe a little thicker and has a little bit more promise to it. But I'm going to go with Jbalia. He's a real powerful striker. He does throw a little bit wider. I mentioned this on yesterday's show when we were talking about PFL Mina too. Like, I don't like how much this dude spins. Like, just stop spinning so much. You're 4-0. There will be time for that later in your career. But, he spins a little bit too much for my liking. And it would take a really good wrestler, in my opinion, to get him down. He does do some things like spin, which exposes himself, but I've also seen him do the right things. I've seen him dig for underhooks and build himself back up and all those kinds of things. On the Qambari side, like, he seemingly got the basics of wrestling down, but he doesn't really seem to have refined a lot of that. He's been reversed in a lot of his fights. Like, he went for the takedown. He actually wound up on the bottom of one of them. He can get a touch wild on the feet too. Especially when he has success. Like, if he lands a couple of strikes, that's going to build his confidence and he's going to let go more. I actually think that that's a problem here in this fight, because I think Jbalia is like a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. And so like the guy who, if Qambari slams him once, gets one good right hand in there, and then he just starts going nuts, I think Jbalia is going to be piecing him up on the return because he's faster, he's sharper, and Qambari is just going to be leaving himself open to those strikes. So I like Jbalia here. I think, again, like a slight favorite. I'll say like -145. I think the faster guy and the guy who can stuff the takedowns is the one who wins this one. All right. That takes us through 2 fights, and you guys aren't new here, or maybe you are. If you're new, welcome. But after those first 2 fights, let me tell you a little bit about a couple of our sponsors. We're going to start by talking about MyBookie.ag. We are, of course, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet on every single sport, including the MLB, NBA, WNBA, golf, and, of course, football futures, and, of course, MMA. They've got all kinds of regional MMA on there. When the UFC comes back next week, they'll have that. LFA, PFL, Aries FC, they got it all. MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of locations. Easy deposit and lightning fast payouts using crypto. Again, I can't get enough of the UFC lines because those things come out super early, and you can be in on those too if you head to mybookie.ag and use promo code MMA SGPN for a 100% deposit match of up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. That's mybookie.ag, promo code MMA SGPN. And Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas is giving away the ultimate fantasy football experience for a 12-person league to draft in Las Vegas and be treated like VIPs for your stay. You'll get a limo ride from the stadium and a $5,000 tab for stadium swim. And look, that's the best part of being at Circa, right? Like, you can see it right there. Who doesn't like to sit in the water, sip a little beverage here and watch your fights come in? Or hey, maybe you're a football guy, maybe watch your football come in. It's all good stuff. So make sure you get that 5,000 tab for stadium swim and a hotel stay for you and your 11 league mates. Plus, as always, you get 15% off at all the Circa properties with promo code SGP15. It's your last chance to enter the Circa Ultimate Fantasy Football Giveaway. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/circa. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CIRCA. All right, 2 fights down. We got 3 fights to go. We're going to kick it on over to some big boys. That's right. And I'm not talking about them just being heavyweights. I'm talking about them being big boys. And of course, I'm talking about Salim Ouassaidi versus Georgi Lobzhanidze. So we'll start with Lobzhanidze. His nickname is the Gladiator. He's 13-8 with 5 knockouts, 3 submissions. He's been knocked out. Get this. 7 times in his career. 8 losses, 7 times he's been knocked out. He's making his PFL debut, or not PFL, Aries FC debut. PFL was yesterday. He's win-loss-win in his last 3, 2-4 in his last 6. He was a regional champ. He fought at 170, 185, and now he's a big boy all the way up to 265. Or actually 205. This fight's at 205, not 265. He previously fought at 265. Ouassaidi has fought at 265 as well. But they're down at 205 for this one. So my mistake on that. But he has fought at heavyweight, 2015 debut, and he's got 2 inches of height over Ouassaidi. So Ouassaidi, his nickname is Bison, Bizon. He's 10-3 in his professional career with a no contest, 7 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been knocked out twice himself. 0-1 in Aries with a no contest, 4-1 with a no contest in his last 6. He was TKO'd in his last fight. He's a former heavyweight, as I mentioned before, and he's 4 years younger than Lobzhanidze. So this one is an interesting one because if you've ever seen Salim Ouassaidi, despite being down at 205 here, he is still going to have a big midsection. Like this is one of our sloppy fatties that we've talked about in previous episodes. This is a big chunky guy. In fact, like he recognizes it too. Like when you have the tail of the tape that shows up before the fights and it shows up and, usually there's shadow boxing or like throwing an elbow, all Muay Thai style. Ouassaidi grabs his belly and like shakes it around. But similar to like what Roy Nelson used to do back in the day. It's great. I love a personality like that. And I think he's going to be a massive favorite here. I'm going to say like -250, like plus 200 on Lobzhanidze. And I'm going to fade the big man. As much as I like his personality, I like his style. I think I actually picked him in his last fight. When he's fighting a guy who knows what he's doing in there. And granted, he's been knocked out a ton, right? And maybe that's also Eddie's path to victory here, right? And that's definitely what the books are going to like, right? The books are going to like Salim, and they're going to like him because he's got a bunch of knockouts. And he's fighting a guy who's been knocked out. But the bottom line for me is Lobzhanidze is a great wrestler. I love his trips. I love how crafty he is. When he is on top, he has really great position, and he sets up. It's like a very wrestler-heavy submission kind of game, right? Like he's a Georgian dude. You might know that from the name like Lobzhanidze. But also like, he's got the build of a wrestler, and it's a guy who brings that wrestling kind of game, which is arm triangles and, heavy side control with elbows and stuff like that. And Ouassaidi, like, I do think that's a weakness for him, right? He throws a lot of overhand rights. He's really tough. He can scramble a little bit with certain people at 205, but against the guy who is a really good wrestler, I just don't know that he'll be able to do that. He is a slower guy because of his size. I would wager that's one of the bigger reasons. But, at the end of the day, I think the Bison maybe not cut out here to beat Lobzhanidze. And we'll take a big dog swing here because we haven't had one of those yet. All right, let's go to the co-main event of the evening. It's between Magomed Umarkhadzhiev versus Soslan Gagloev. They are a pair of 155-pounders. We'll start by talking about Gagloev first. His nickname is Nart, N-A-R-T. He's 5-1 in his pro career, 4 knockouts, 1 submission, so he's finished all of his fights. He's lost one fight by knockout, which means every single fight has ended inside the distance. 4-1 in Aries. He got TKO'd in his last fight. Of course, that was a fight against, if I'm not mistaken, a title fight. And he has 3 inches of height over Umarkhadzhiev. So Umarkhadzhiev, 6-0 in his pro career. He's got 4 knockouts, 1 submission. He's 3-0 in Aries. He used to fight down at 45. He's going to be 2 years younger than Gagloev. So, this is tough because we got a guy who's 6-0 and a guy who's 5-1. Both Russians, which, as we've talked about before, seems to sway the books one way or the other. So, like, obviously, there's neither is going to sway him with their name alone. And so I think the 6-0 record probably comes in here as a favorite. Not a big one, though. I'm going to say like -140. We'll get like +115 on Gagloev, maybe +120. And I'm going to go with Gagloev here. I really like the fact that, you know, he did fight for the title. That was against Axel Sola. Or maybe it was just, maybe that was Sola's fight to get to the belt. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Hit me in the comments. But he fought Axel Sola. He had a lot of success early in that fight. You know, my one sort of knock on his striking is he does come up short a little bit here. But like also in this fight, he's not going to have to worry about that because he's not fighting Axel Sola anymore. He's fighting Umarkhadzhiev, and Umarkhadzhiev is, you know, 3 inches shorter than him. We don't necessarily have good reach numbers on them, but it, you know, I'd stand a wager that he's probably got a couple of inches of reach on him as well. And, you know, he takes people down, Gagloev does. He doesn't necessarily hold them down all that well, but, you know, he's got a nice double and probably is the better of the 2 strikers here because, as I said, he had some success against Sola. When we watch Umarkhadzhiev, you know, the big problem I have is that he throws combos, but, like, you kind of see him coming. They got a big windup behind him. You know, he fought Ion Harris in one of his most recent fights, and he was kind of held off of his takedowns. He like, you know, wound up getting pinned against the cage a little bit, and, you know, didn't necessarily have a lot of success in that realm. And that just, to me, if he's doing that against Harris, I mean, like, I think that's a nightmare against Gagloev because, again, Gagloev, good wrestler, maybe not necessarily great at holding the position, but he's good at wrestling. And so I think he's going to maybe wear down Umarkhadzhiev by holding him against the cage. I also, as I said before, I think he's a little bit sharper on the feet, a little bit quicker. I think he should be able to win there. So if we can get him as a slight dog here, or, you know, any dog price whatsoever on Gagloev, I think he gets the bounce back win here following that loss to Sola. All right, and that takes us up through our first 4 fights, which means we only got the main event left. But before we get to the main event, let me quickly tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog's Best Ball Mania is happening all summer long, giving away $15 million in prizes, including $2 million to first place. No waiver wire, no arguments about trades. Best Ball is the best way to play fantasy football. Underdog is also a great place to play Pick'em. Personally, one of the Pick'em ones I've been leaning on lately is I've been taking the higher than on Drake Baldwin's total basis. It seems like that guy, every time he gets a start, is ripping a couple of doubles or a couple of singles at least. So get in on Drake Baldwin's higher than on his total basis. And you can get in on that when you sign up with promo code MMA SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus credits. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. And you've heard us talk about Rhythm before, and they just dropped a game-changing feature called Power Trends. These AI detected patterns where Rhythm's model has consistently won and has a high return on investment. Think about a strikeout prop that wins 59% of the time with the line and win probability hit a certain range. Power Trends are updated daily and exclusive to Rhythm. No touts, no noise, just clean data-backed bets. Download the Rhythm app, check out Power Trends, and start betting smarter. You know we will. One of the Power Trends I love lately, they hit me up over the weekend. I was flipping through the app, and I saw that they liked the higher than on Chad Patrick's strikeouts for the Brewers. It was listed at 5.5. I was like, is he going to get more than 5.5? You know, went out there and got 7 over 5 1/3, and he was still going the last I checked. You know, Rhythm has got their finger on the pulse, and you can have your finger on the pulse when you get a 7-day free trial. And you can do that by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right. We've made it through almost all of the time. We have to do this without Jeff. So thank you guys for chilling with me while we break these fights down. And I got one more for you. Let's talk about the main event here too, which is between Henrique Shiguemoto versus Mădălin Pîrvulescu. This is 3 5-minute rounds in the middleweight division. Shiguemoto was originally supposed to fight Virgil, which was, I don't know if that was supposed to, is Virgil still the champ there? It might have been a title fight, but regardless, it was supposed to be a much bigger fight here at 185. He's taken the replacement Pîrvulescu in here instead. Now, let's break down the fight. We'll start with Pîrvulescu. He's 7-3 in his pro career. He's got all 7 of those wins have come by knockout. He's been knocked out twice and submitted once. So all of his fights have ended inside the distance. He definitely owes us some rounds. This is his short notice Aries FC debut. 2-1 in his last 3, 2-3 in his last 5. He did lose by submission in his last fight. 0-1 in PFL. He was a regional champ. He used to fight at 205 pounds and 265 pounds. And he is 6 years younger than Shiguemoto. Shiguemoto, 15-5-1 with 1 no contest, 11 knockouts, 3 submissions. He has been submitted twice. He's 2-1 in Aries. He is lost win over his last 4, 10-2 over his last 12, 0-1 on Dana White's Contender Series. And this is usually when Jeff asked me if I know who it was, and it was Aliakseb Kizriev, which is maybe not aged all that well, but regardless, it was a long time ago for Shiguemoto. He is a regional champ. He used to fight at 205 pounds as well. He made his debut in 2007, and he is going to have 1 inch of height over 1 inch of reach over Pîrvulescu. This one's easy for me. I'm going to take Henrique Shiguemoto. I think we're going to say like -185. Like this might be kind of close. I think the short notice is obviously going to tip it into his favor. But a lot of knockouts for Pîrvulescu. So like you're probably going to see some people who are interested in that. My honest breakdown of having to go watch Pîrvulescu because, I watch a ton of regional MMA. This guy's name came up. I didn't know who he was. This was very surprising to me. Kind of an interesting guy to come in here on short notice. But I watched him. He's crazy dangerous. He's crazy dangerous for 2 minutes, though. And after those 2 minutes, it looks like he's pretty much out of gas. Throws big winging shots and overhand rights and all that kind of stuff. It looks like he's trying to knock your block off. And he might just knock your block off in the first 2 minutes. But if he doesn't, he's in a world of hurt, which is why he's been finishing all of his losses. And he's been, lost 3 fights, including a couple recently. Shiguemoto, on the other hand, excellent pressure, which I think is really important when you're fighting a guy who, likes to just wing shots early. Get in his face, make him get worn down, make him throw those shots, but on your terms and not others. He is a little bit slow. And he does reach a little bit with his strikes, which, hey, maybe that's trouble in these first 2 minutes if he doesn't survive. But I do like the fact that he's going to be the one pressuring. He's going to be the one moving forward. And I think he can wrestle a little bit. Most of what I've seen from his wrestling has been counter wrestling. But I think if he just moves forward and gets into one clinch with Pîrvulescu, I think he will wear Pîrvulescu down. Now, he too is, maybe it's worth mentioning, he too has had his own issues with his gas tank. He's been tired out before in the past and gotten into some trouble. But I think it's like 1/8 as bad as Pîrvulescu. Like I think Pîrvulescu, again, I think he's got 2 minutes of gas. I think he tires after that. And if Shiguemoto, gets in his face and forces him to wrestle a little bit, I think that happens in even quicker than 2 minutes. So I'm going to go with Henrique Shiguemoto. Again, I think like -175 on that line. Okay, and that's going to do it for all 5 of the fights that we're breaking down for this card. Let me give you a quick recap, and then I'll tell you where you can check us out. Otherwise, I like Shiguemoto. I like Gagloev. I like Lobzhanidze. I like Jbalia, and I like Masmoudi. That's going to be the 5 plays for today. Again, we're skipping lightning round. The rest of the card's kind of in flux. I saw recently their matchmaker posting looking for some replacements. So hopefully these all stuck together by the time this gets into your ears. And we thank you for getting in our ears, especially in this week where I've been doing this solo. I know sometimes that's not the ideal mode for listening for some of you people, but I appreciate the hell out of it anyway. We'll be back with Jeff next week. We're going to do 3 regional episodes as well as a prelim breakdown of UFC Nashville and a main card breakdown of UFC Nashville. So back to our 5 episodes next week. In the meantime and in between time, you can check out all the writings at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. I'm writing stuff daily over there. You can check out my NRFI plays. You can check out, I've got some MMA plays each and every week. There's all kinds of great stuff over there. Make sure you check it out. And not just from me and Jeff, but like tons of other writers over there giving you futures for football and best bets and parlays and all kinds of good stuff. So check out sportsgamblingpodcast.com. You can check me out on Twitter at Gumby Vreeland. You can check Jeff out at Jeff Fox Writer. Of course, check out the show at SGPN MMA. If you'd like to check out our stuff outside the network, Jeff has a Substack. It's called moneymma.substack.com. He's giving you all the payout information from fighters, or at least whatever we can get our fingers on, as well as there's some giveaways and cool stuff there as well. If you want to check me out, you can check out my writing at Cageside Press, or check out my podcast, the Top Turtle MMA Podcast. We interview fighters usually in the UFC or Dana White's Contender Series or whatever the biggest show is this week. This week we're talking to PFL Europe's Salvatore Liga. We're talking to Anthony Guarasio, who's going to be, he's the CFFC champ right now at heavyweight, and he's going to be getting his shot on Dana White's Contender Series. So you can check all of that out, and you can, once again, I think that just about does it. I told you where you could check out the show. I told you where you could check everybody else out. So for the last time, all by myself, at least in the immediate future, I'm Dana Gumby Vreeland, and I'll catch you next time.